Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is our second lecture, and in our second lecture, we would learn about interpersonal communication and the importance of interpersonal communication. We would start. So, first of all, before starting off the course, the question that comes into our mind is why study interpersonal communication? As this is being like most of the time the people do think about these things and what will I get out of this and why should I study interpersonal communication. So here they say that we can identify two major benefits, the personal and the social. They say that the interpersonal communication means that effectiveness at interpersonal communication that lead you towards personal success as well as social success. So because in you at personal and social level, your if you are able to interact well with the people at different levels, because people are all the time located at different levels, they belong to different backgrounds and they have got different socio-cultural backgrounds and they have different thinking, their attitudes are different, their education, their occupations are different, so their mental filters are different. So if you are able to interact well with the people who are located at different levels, you keep in their comfort level in your mind while talking to them, and you are also able to create room of comfort for others too. Then you would be termed as an effective interpersonal communicator. And here that like they say that if you are able to engage in conversations and if you're able to interact with your relations, your neighbors, your acquaintance, your and the people that you meet every day, and you have the ability to engage them in satisfying conversations, then you would be termed as an effective interpersonal communicator and then you would be successful. Satisfying conversation means the conversation that are comfortable and enjoyable for others. The people like to interact with you, the people trust you, the people like to talk to you, and the people come to you for in different conditions. They take your stances, they take your consultancy, they trust you, they enjoy talking to you. It means that you are successful at interpersonal communications. Moving on. Your professional success also depends on your interpersonal competence, on your interpersonal communication, and how much effective you are in that. And since the success and the professional success, the social success, and the interpersonal competence, they are linked to each other. That's why there are different studies being taken up on these topics. And most of the time, there are many studies. You would also go through the notes, and you would see that the people have taken up different kinds of researches on this topic, and they try to see that what kinds of interpersonal skills are seen as the most effective, and they result in success. So, out of these, one research says that positive personality traits are ranked highest, and then they are being followed by some other skills and experience and many other things. But these are the positive personality traits which are ranked the highest. Then another study, I was briefly discussed the things over here. Another study which is being conducted, I think that's by a Canadian organization, and they did a survey, and their study that suggests their findings suggest that it's become quite increasingly difficult to find the potential employees with the desired characteristics. And what are those desired characteristics? What are those positive personality traits? They are having a positive attitude. They try to see the people with positive attitudes. They try to see the people who are expert at communication skills, those who also have the strong work ethics. They know about their customer service skills and they do, and those who have the orientations towards teamwork and they are the effective team workers. So these are termed as the effective interpersonal skills. And these are the terms which are these are the skills which are being seen as the positive personality traits. And you would see that all these individually they are a combination of multiple other skills. For example, you may take communication skills. So what are the communication skills? They are the combination of many other sub skills. You need to be effective at listening, you need to be effective at observing, you need to be effective at speaking and presenting the things, and many more. In teamwork, you need many things, like you need to have a good disposition, you must be flexible, easygoing, tolerant, accommodative, problem solving. You need to know how to take the decision, the right decision at the right time. So you would see that these are the combination of different other skills. So one by one, the person who want to be interpersonally effective, they need to take up the skills one by one, be adapting them, practice them, and then definitely they are going to gain one positive personality trait. Then move on to the next one. So this is how the people are going to be working on their interpersonal communication and gaining effectiveness in them. So there is another survey, and that survey identified the ability to effectively communicate orally and in writing as the highest of any other skills listed. So they see that if you're able to effectively communicate orally or in writing, then you are the successful individual, and these are the highest of the other skills. Now you know what does communication means and what does communication involve, both listening and speaking and imparting your ideas successfully towards others. Moving on. Here there is a definition of they also discuss the importance of interpersonal skills, and by going through all these different kinds of researches we would undertake, and we would conclude that the importance of interpersonal communication skills, they extend over the entire spectrum of professions. You could not say that the people who belong to any one profession, they must be adept at interpersonal skills. No, in each and every kind of a profession, if you are adept at interpersonal skills, if you are effective interpersonal communicator, you would be successful. So take for example, even if you're a doctor, you are an engineer, you are a teacher, or you are a businessman, no matter who you are and in what field you are, you need to have the good interpersonal communication skills in order to be successful. Now there are the 5 points being given here, and this is a task for you to go through these 5 points and come up with your own assumption that either this is true or this is false. I want you to please honestly take that up and judge yourself and assess yourself. So first point says, good communicators are born, not made. Yes, no. Number two, the more you communicate, the better you will be at communicating. Yes or no? Number three, in your interpersonal communications, a good guide to follow is to be as open, empathic, and supportive as you can be. True or false? Number four, in intercultural communication, it's best to ignore differences and communicate just as you would with members of your own culture. True or false? Number five says, when there is conflict, your relationship is in trouble. True or false? Just write them with you. Either you feel that these are true or false, write them with you, and now we are going to see what's the result. So, you must have figured that out that all these 5 statements are wrong. They are false. If you have felt and if you mark them right, then this is the place to assess yourself and assess your commonly held assumptions and beliefs, the ingrained patterns. शुरू से ही हमारे दिमाग में होता है कि अच्छा ये ऐसे ही है, किताबों में पढ़ लिया है, किसी से सुन लिया है और तुमने उस पर आंखें बंद करके यकीन कर लिया है कि ये ऐसे ही है. You had not tried to think critically once on these commonly held assumptions and beliefs, and we are not trying to see that this could be wrong too. So here this is the best place to start off to question your commonly held assumptions. So for the first one, we would see the number one क्या था, that good communicators are born not made. अच्छा, one point क्या कहता है? अच्छा, अगर हम इस पे बिलीव कर लें कि good communicators are born not made, तो इसका मतलब है कि हमने मान लिया कि भी ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, क्यों पढ़ रहे हैं हम ये इंटरपर्सनल स्किल्स और कम्युनिकेशन के बारे में चीज़ें, क्योंकि गुड कम्युनिकेटर्स ईदर दे आर गुड और दे आर नॉट गुड. So you would have interpersonal skills or you don't have interpersonal skills. So why there is a need to learn about them and to practice them? So here, point number one says that effective communication is learned. This is not something which is inborn. This is not something which is static. This is a learned behavior. We can learn that, we can improve that with the practice, and we can be effective in that. The second point, now we would see that what is the second point. The second point says that the more you communicate, the better you will be at communicating. So if this is the case, then it would mean that the kind of communication that you have at this moment, with all the drawbacks, with all the weaknesses, and with all the negative or wrong things that you do at the daily basis, if you start practicing them and you just communicate them more and more, then it means that you would develop all these negative attitudes and all these drawbacks more and more. Like this says that it's not the amount of communication that matters, rather it's the quality. If you practice bad habits, you're more likely to grow less effective than more effective. So it would have adverse effect if you would practice bad habits. First, try to identify that where do you need improvement, what are your drawbacks at communication, improve them, then practice them, and then all the time your practice would involve more and more improved communication. Only then you would be effective at that. The number third point says that in your interpersonal communication, a good guide to follow is to be as open, empathic, and supportive as you can be. No, this is not the case. All the time, in each and every kind of exchange with every kind of individual, could not be open, empathic, and supportive. You need to understand the situation, you need to understand the people, you need to understand the demand of the situation and interaction, and then you have to decide whether you have to be open or you have to be empathic or you have to be supportive or you have to be critical at this moment and you have to learn to say no. So this is important because like here the explanation says that each interpersonal situation is unique and the type of communication appropriate in one situation may not be appropriate in another. So you need to understand the appropriate situation and its demands. Number four, in intercultural communication, it's best to ignore differences and communicate just as you would with members of your own culture. This is not the case. You need to understand the differences. Yes, you need to respect the differences and you need to understand them, but don't ignore them because ignoring differences will often create problems. Most of the time, that create problems. People from different cultures follow different rules for what is and what's not appropriate. What do they accept as appropriate and what they don't accept as appropriate. So that would create problems and that would be a great hindrance in your communication if you don't keep in mind the differences and you just go on and on like you do with your own people. Number five, when there's conflict, your relationship is in trouble. I don't think that there is any relationship where there is no conflict because this does not mean that you are going to expect that there won't be any conflict. That's why your relationship could be strong. No, the conflicts would be there. The thing is that you need to understand how to handle those conflicts and how to come out of them. This would make you successful at your professional level as well as at the social level. So, like the explanation says that all meaningful relationships experience conflict. The trick is to manage them effectively. Now, why we did that? We did that because we want you to understand that if we just take all commonly held assumptions, all ingrained patterns as they are, then they are problematic. If you are an educated individual, you need to assess the things. You need to critically think about the things. And then you need to accept them. Don't accept them as they are. So here what you have to do, you also need to think about some kinds of beliefs that you hold and are they limiting your thinking about communication? Or do you have believe that certain kinds of communication are beyond your capabilities? Or do you impose limits on how you see yourself as a communicator? Means कभी तुमने सोचा है तुमने कहा होगा कि अच्छा नहीं मुझे तो अंग्रेजी कभी आ ही नहीं सकती अच्छा मैं तो कभी इंग्लिश में प्रेजेंटेशन नहीं दे सकता या दे सकती. अच्छा, no, no, I can't do this thing. My God, the people are doing it. I won't be able to. So you need to understand and you need to assess your own thinking and your commonly held assumptions before you start practicing your interpersonal communication. So here we would see the nature of interpersonal communication, and the definition that they gave is that interpersonal communication is the verbal and non-verbal interaction between two or more interdependent people. Interdependent is the key word. This relatively simple, yeah. This actually refers to a variety of characteristics. I also want you to please come up with your own definition of interpersonal communication and interpersonal skills. I would someday would ask you about your own definition of interpersonal communication and interpersonal skills. Please do that. Make your own definition of both of these terms. So first point says that interpersonal communication involves interdependent individuals. Interpersonal communication uh, involves the individuals who are not only connected to each other but they also depend upon each other, because you say that the people are in one way or another, they are always connected to each other. They always need, one individual always need another individual or individuals to fulfill their needs or to achieve their goals. So basically, this is called a dyadic relationship. Dyad actually means two. The basic unit of communication is dyadic, where the people, one person is connected to another, another is connected to another one, and that person is connected back to the first one. So this is how this social and professional life, in your social and professional life, the people are interconnected to each other and how they are interdependent upon each other for one thing or another. So, interpersonal communication always involve interdependent individuals and interconnected individuals. Second point says, since that involves interdependent individuals, that's why it is inherently relational. Because here, interpersonal communication is essentially relational in nature. Because interpersonal communication takes place in a relationship, it affects the relationship and it defines the relationship. So that is so because the way you talk to the individuals, that would be determined by what kind of a relationship you have with the other individual, or what kind of a relationship would develop as a result of that communication. So because with every kind of interpersonal communicator, your style of communication would be different. तुम अपने घर वालों से डिफरेंट तरीके से बात करोगे. अगर हम प्रोफेशनल लाइफ में आ जाएं तो तुम अपने बॉस से, तुम्हारा इंटरेक्शन वुड बी डिफरेंट. इंटरेक्शन में हम क्या लेते हैं कि तुम्हारी बॉडी लैंग्वेज एंड तुम्हारी लैंग्वेज चॉइसेस, दे एंड तुम्हारी लिसनिंग कितनी इफेक्टिव होगी, ये सारे जो एलिमेंट्स होंगे ये डिफरेंट होंगे एज कम्पेयर टू योर कम्युनिकेशन विद योर कोलीग और विद योर फ्रेंड और विद द पियोन और विद द ऑफिस बॉय और सम अदर सीनियर और जूनियर. सो हर एक के साथ तुम्हारा इंटरेक्शन डिफरेंट होता है, और वो इंटरेक्शन कैसे डिफरेंट होता है वो डिटरमिंड होता है कि तुम्हारा किस तरह का रिलेशनशिप है उनके साथ, और उस कम्युनिकेशन के रिजल्ट में तुम्हारा किस तरह का रिलेशनशिप डेवलप होगा. So the way you communicate will influence the kind of relationship that you have. The next point says here for this figure, I want you to see this point, that interpersonal communication exists on a continuum. That your interpersonal communication that ranges from relatively impersonal at one end to highly personal at the other, as you could see in this figure, that at one end there is the impersonal relationship, at another end this is the interpersonal relationship. So the way you communicate with the other individual, that defines that either you have the impersonal relationship with them or the interpersonal relationship with them. Because most of the time this is seen that the people at daily basis you communicate, your relationship more is impersonal with the people whom you really don't know. and in intimate relationships, your communication would be interpersonal. So in your daily life, sometimes your relationship is impersonal and you talk impersonally with the people. Like if you are traveling in a public van and you talk to the driver, or you are going for shopping and you talk to the shopkeeper. So these are the impersonal relationships. And when you talk to your father, or you talk to your sister, or you talk to your friend, so that would be the interpersonal relationship. So first of all, you need to see that at the very highly impersonal level, what kind of relationships are there. But sometimes this is not the case that you don't know. Like sometimes you know the people. You talk to the peon or you talk to the guard, you know them, but you talk the way you talk to them, that defines that you have in-person relationship with them or interpersonal relationship with them. So I just want you to make your own continuum and see that at the very highly impersonal and at the very highly interpersonal level, what kind of your relationships fall. So make your own continuum. And the to do task is that you explain that why learning about interpersonal communication would be beneficial to your personal and professional life. I just want you to think about that, and then I would see whether I have to take that in writing or you have to explain that as a part of your class activity, and I would hear that. So that's all for today. The next topic that we would talk about would be emotional intelligence and interpersonal communication, self talk. Thank you.